The Eagles trading for Cam Hayward? I say why not? We're going to be going over that trade, what it would cost. Does it make any sense? And we're going to be going over the safety position, the market. More news has come out, and the Eagles are still trying to add another safety. And obviously, Diana Rossini has talked about some situation in Philly regarding Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, and what happened last year between Nick Sirianni, Brian Johnson, how that whole thing kind of panned out by the end of 2023, and what's changed going to 24. Some new news we've heard enough of, but I kind of want to go over a few things at the end of the video as well. So let's get into it.
A killer buried, but not dead.
Darren, we better turn around. Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
Yo, what is going on, guys? I hope everyone's having a fantastic day today. I want to go over some Philadelphia Eagles news as usual, as we're getting very close to training camp. Now, we've always talked about moves that Howie Roseman can make, and I feel like before the regular season does begin that he's going to make a couple moves. I wouldn't necessarily say trades, maybe free agents, but you never know what could happen. What's up Howie Roseman's sleeve? Now, there has been news regarding defensive lineman, defensive tackle Cameron Hayward at 35 years old, 6'7" Pro Bowler. And trending news, the Eagles were listed as a potential landing spot for Steelers defensive line Cameron Hayward by Bleacher Report. Christopher Knox at Bleacher Report says a trade for Hayward would consist of a 25 second and a 26 fourth round pick should the Eagles pursue. Now, the first thing you have to look at this thing is, yes, 35 years old, okay? Had a groin injury in 2023, was out a lot of games, did not play up to par last year. 22, 23 solo tackles, a couple sacks. But 2 years prior to last year, 160 tackles, 20 and a half sacks for Cameron Hayward. We know he's a good player. This would be a move to bolster up this defensive line. I've always talked about adding more meat to the defensive line, adding more of a rotation. Obviously, at DT, you have nose with Jordan Davis, and obviously having Jalen Carter at DT. Milton Williams, seeing Milton Williams hopefully have a bigger year. Jalen Carter hopefully having a bigger year. But why not adding Cameron Hayward? Would it make any sense for that? To be honest, to add a move like this is obviously going to be a rental for the year. So if the Eagles want to pay him an extra couple $1 million, whatever it's going to cost to take over the contract or whatever he's looking for, because you're not signing a long-term player at 35 years old. Okay, his resume speaks for itself. To give away a 25 second-round pick and a 26 fourth-rounder, to me, it's way too much for a 35-year-old. You have to go from year to year to year. This is a year-to-year league. And, you know, he was out with an injury last year. So I'm not taking chances to give up that much. I mean, a second-round pick for next year is a quality starter for us for years to come. And a fourth-round pick in 26 isn't really a big deal. But I don't think Howie Roseman's going to be giving a second-round pick. I don't think, you know, you're getting a one-year rental to this squad to bolster the defensive line and, you know, to make that run this year. I think Cameron Hayward would be fantastic from a standpoint of championship standpoint, getting to a Super Bowl, adding more of a rotation to your defensive line. I've talked about it a million times, adding another defensive end like a Yannick Ngakoue or something like that, because there's a lot of uncertainty this year with Vic Fangio's defense. You know, is he going to put this defense back on the map? Does this whole entire scheme still work for us? You know, because I feel like if this scheme does not work this year with Vic Fangio and he fails as a defensive coordinator, I feel the Eagles have to go back to a 4-3, a more aggressive approach on defense or something like that. But we know that this defense is all about multiple fronts, disguising coverages. We all know this. You know, Cameron Hayward, I don't know. I think that is a little bit expensive for him. And like I said, going back to last year, because of his age and because of now he had an injury last year and missed a lot of time, and still had a couple sacks and 25 tackles, whatever it is. I just feel like now I wouldn't give up that much for just one rotational guy on a rental. I mean, I think he's a fantastic player. He's been like I said, resume speaks for itself for years. But if you're going to rent him out, work the contract, and I think that's where it really stands. I mean, maybe I'll give a fourth for 26. Maybe I'll give a fourth for next year, maybe. Okay, for a move like this, if that's the case. Obviously, we have to look towards the trade deadline too by week 8, week 9 of the regular season, because the Eagles are always active during the trade deadline to acquire a player. If the Eagles are doing good by week 8 or 9 and we're in contention to get into the playoffs and we're actually playing really well and we're not having that many issues and we want to add more as luxury, you go out and spend a 4th round pick on Cameron Hayward or something like that. But the trade deadline is mostly fleece season because teams are trying to fleece other teams during the season with trades and overprice a lot of guys in that regard. But when it comes to Cameron Hayward, I think he would be an excellent addition to this team. I really don't have an issue with it at all. But for a 35-year-old player that was hurt last year, I don't care what he did 2 years prior. Those are amazing numbers, okay, in 21 and 22. But this is a year-by-year league basis. And if the guy has already dealt with an injury last year that sat him out and his progression went, his production went down, then things need to change. And I think the value, I'm sorry, with his age and the injury, it's got to steep a little bit lower. At this point, I don't know if you're really giving up 2 picks. I don't mind giving up 2 picks for 2 separate years, but I think a 2nd round pick is just way too much because we need more. We're gonna obviously need more to our defense next year and add more to our defense next year. That 2nd round pick, the Eagles have 9 picks in the 25 draft, 9 picks already. And probably will add more later on. So I think this is definitely a trade. I wouldn't be against it. It's just for a 35-year-old player with a good resume off an injury last year, how much am I really giving up for this player? So I think I would definitely pull the trigger on it, but not for that amount of draft capital. And how it's very steep draft capital for us that we really can't just throw away. Because the Eagles still need to add next year to the defense and all that. So let me know what you guys think about that situation. Now, I want to talk about, obviously, safeties. We've talked about it really since when free agency started this year. We talked about Justin Simmons. And I think Justin Simmons sitting out this whole entire time, still not signing with a team right now, is because he wants to get paid. I mean, that's simple as that. He wants money. And there's no way Justin Simmons is coming to the Philadelphia Eagles as a backup. It's not happening. So this is what it says. The Eagles have interest in signing All-Pro DB Justin Simmons. League source tell ML Football says Howie Roseman & Co. had talks with Eddie Jackson's camp as they continue to look for safety help, but are not willing to pay top dollar at the moment in the current market. Now, Eddie Jackson's only successful year was under Vic Fangio in his second year? I forgot what year. I don't know if it was his rookie year. I think it was his second year with Vic. I think it was the second year, and that's when Vic Fangio was. I think Vic Fangio was the DC at that time. I could be wrong. But Eddie Jackson only had one good year and then really kind of fell off after that. So the news with Eddie Jackson going down the line, Eddie Jackson did meet up with the Ravens, it looked like, and then later on, he did sign the 1-year deal with them too. So Eddie Jackson is now with the Ravens. Going to be a really good defense this year over there. He'll probably play really well over there, hopefully. So the Eagles missed out on Eddie Jackson so far. Do the Eagles really need that much safety help? That's really the big question. Because if Justin Simmons isn't getting paid and he's not starting, he's not coming to Philadelphia. Okay. Obviously you have Andre Sam, you have a maybe one depth piece behind that safety group. And if, James Bradbury is moving to safety, if that whole thing is actually happening, I don't even know if that's happening at this point. CJ Gardner-Johnson and obviously Reed Blankenship. I just feel like they need to add more to that group. Just me in general. I just think there should be more competition. I don't think you should be handing anybody a job, on a silver platter. I've fought a million people in the comment section about Reed Blankenship. I think he's a excellent, a solid starter for this team. I think as a role player, he's fantastic. I think he will get better. And Reed's got another year throughout the 2025 season, so the Eagles did extend him for next year. And obviously, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's here for another 2 years after the 2024 season this season. So, adding another safety here, especially a star, it just makes no sense. The Justin Simmons thing is just kind of making no sense unless he's taking less money and unless he's going to be a backup. And it just seems like that's just not going to happen right now. I don't know what other safeties are available. At this point, maybe you're going to look at other people's practice squads. Once the Eagles start cutting guys, or at least to a point where they start cutting, they have to make cuts in one day now, because that's the new rule since last year. It used to be like 3 different dates to start cutting down your 90-man roster, whatever, to 53. Now you have to do it in one day. So it's a lot of stress, and it's a lot of stress for us fans as well. So the only good thing about cuts for, going to the regular season before the regular season starts, guys going off waivers, guys getting cut that have played well for other teams this offseason. So the Eagles might be able to pick up, maybe pick off the waiver wire, or pick off somebody's practice squad, another safety as a depth piece that has maybe somewhat of a high ceiling, that showed some good things this offseason with another franchise. So like I said, it's slim pickings right now. It's very late. If the Eagles need that much safety help, does that mean they don't feel solid about Reed Blankenship as a starter? Is Vic Fangio not feeling very comfortable with Reed Blankenship? You have a new defensive coordinator now. This guy has all the control now. So there might be players that you might typically like for this defense that he might have a change of heart for. So things could change. So Eddie Jackson's off the table, and Justin Simmons is still out there. If the Eagles have interest in him, he's got to start. That's Justin Simmons wants nothing more than to start for a team right now. He doesn't want to be a backup. He doesn't want to get and look, if he's waiting this long to get paid, I don't know what to tell you. The value is going to drop down. He's not going to get what he wants. He's not going to get what he wants. He might get a little bit extra money, but I don't think he's going to get what his number is specifically. So we'll see what happens in that regard. Now, finally, I want to go over, Diana Rossini had a podcast, and she, this stuff just keeps popping up, and some new information did pop up. But, we're always hearing about Nick Sirianni. We're always hearing about Jalen Hurts, and was there a disconnect in their relationship last year? That there is a quote unquote work in progress with their relationship. I don't think it's bad. I don't think off the field it's bad at all. I think there has been, I wouldn't say a pure disconnect, but when you're playing games like you did last year, before we were even 10-1, going through these ugly wins, do you not think Jalen Hurts was really trying to change things with this offense, bringing it up to when you meet your head coach, you're meeting quarterback and head coach are meeting in meetings every single week alone. The rumors I've said a million times were close to the situation of Jalen Hurts is that, Jalen Hurts tried to change the offense, and Nick kind of swept it under the rug. To kind of summarize it, he just ignored Jalen Hurts. And, how many times do we see Nick Sirianni talking to Jalen Hurts on the sideline or being with him on the sideline? I never really saw it once last year. Not much. I don't even remember a game that they were kind of talking and working things out when these ugly wins persisted week by week, and this offense wasn't adjusting to defenses adjusting to us. So if the playbook wasn't changing, even if you're winning, a win is a win at the end of the day, but it doesn't mean anything anymore. I know it's hard to win in this league, but it was just off last year, where Hurts was probably just like, well, whatever I got to deal with, they're putting me in this position. I have to make the most out of it on field. I know he had some turnovers last year that were ridiculous. I get that. I think Jalen Hurts is going to play fantastic this year, but I'm still going to hold him accountable. And especially I'm going to hold this coaching staff accountable, because we haven't got this coaching staff right yet. Where hopefully this year, Nick is on a short leash, and we all know that Kellen Moore and Fangio have a lot of control, okay, which is great. Nick taking a step back, being the motivator for this team and doing this thing, okay? So even if you're winning last year, I feel like they did have a moment that kind of, lingered throughout the season. I don't think they hate each other, or I don't think it's to the point where everyone's making it the way they're making it. I just think that as a football professional to professional relationship, I think some of it may be being rebuilt and trying to go in a different direction. Jalen Hurts didn't like the direction Nick was going in. And on top of everything else, and if this is a work in progress relationship, fine. I'm not really worried about them having a beef with each other, as everyone kind of is explaining that. We found out more news from Diana Rossini, which I thought was really interesting. So I've always wanted to know, like, we knew this was Nick's game plan every single game last year. Like, Dave Spadaro went on Twitter, X, the internet, whatever, and actually was taking questions from Eagle fans. He took a moment for an hour to take questions from Eagle fans and to answer Eagle fans. And one fan was like, hey, how much control does Nick actually have in this offense? Is it like 60%? Is it? And Dave says, oh, no, it's Nick's game plan, 100%. And Brian Johnson kind of piggybacks off it. So this is what the report says. It says Nick Sirianni is seemingly 100% responsible for the Eagles' poor play calling and stagnant offense last season, says Diana Rossini. Not surprised. It says, according to a few people in Philadelphia, while Brian Johnson was the OC, it was 100% Nick Sirianni's offense you were watching last season, and Sirianni wanted to do it his way. Johnson wasn't calling his own plays. He was solely focused on giving Sirianni the offense that Sirianni wanted to run. Sirianni game plans every week in 23, but he doesn't call the plays, which was another thing. Like, if this is your game plan, why aren't you calling the plays? He doesn't know how to run a combination of different plays. Just remember, guys, when we got Sirianni from the Indianapolis Colts, the right hand of Frank Reich, that you supposedly thought that Nick was calling plays with the Colts, he wasn't. He was never calling plays with the Colts. Frank Reich was. Okay? And then goes to Philadelphia in 21, play calls, doesn't run the ball, horrible half of the year, and then Steichen took over, and we were great after that happened. And obviously, the 22 season was a fantastic season with losing a Super Bowl, unfortunately. So Brian Johnson is an offensive coordinator that wasn't being an offensive coordinator. Job label was totally wrong because he was literally the scapegoat for Nick. I mean, Nick game plan, but Nick said, look, this is my offense, but I want you to call. Like, he's giving the playbook to Brian Johnson. He's literally setting Brian Johnson up to fail. Why do you think Brian Johnson's not an offensive coordinator for another team right now? If the Eagles were 10-1 and they fell apart, I would expect that there'd be a lot of teams after Brian Johnson this offseason, right? Sure. And there were teams that wanted Brian Johnson. Now he's an assistant coach, back to an assistant coach. I don't think he's the coordinator for Washington. I think he's like an assistant coach or something like that. So I think everybody around the league knew how the Eagles were running things last year from what it looked like out of the 10-play playbook that we had. So this makes it more embarrassing for Nick, and this is why they hired two brand new coordinators. Not two coordinators that barely have any experience or first-time coordinators. You're talking about two coordinators with experience and a lot of years under their belt. There's no way Nick's taking control from Kellen Moore. There's no way Nick's taking control over Vic Fangio. Hiring those two coordinators really showed us that Nick is taking way of a back seat right now, beyond. And it's totally showing. Nick has got to let go. Nick has got to relax with that ego, and he just has to be a hands-off coach. That's it. So that situation is just crazy. I already knew it was Nick's game plan the middle of the season last year when we actually heard the news middle of the season. Okay, why the offense was running the way it was, and why Brian Johnson was just like, what is Brian Johnson doing? Like, he's carrying out Nick's plan every single week, and just that's it. I mean, you're getting paid a salary just to read someone else's playbook. I mean, what the hell is that, dude? What is that? So Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie made a lot of changes this offseason. And we're going to see if it's, we're going to see if it all comes together. That's what I'm taking from it. And Diana Rossini, she's never really wrong about a lot of things. Like she talks about that. I mean, I could believe this report 100%. I mean, that's there's no doubt about it. The Jalen Hurts Nick relationship is a whole nother thing. Like, we don't know what happened behind the scenes. You know, we don't know what actually happened, but at the same time, like, I could believe that there was somewhat of friction. There's definitely friction. I don't think it's like, oh, they cursed each other out. They had a fight in the locker room. No, like, I think there was just a little friction, and it lingered all season because no changes were being made to this offense. Brian Johnson to Kellen Moore is night and day. Sean Desai, Matt Patricia to Vic Fangio is night and day. So that's where we're at, and hopefully things go well. That's what I'm hoping for. But other than that, guys, that's pretty much it. So a lot of news today. Let me know what you guys think about Cameron Hayward coming to the Philadelphia Eagles. Would you do a trade? What would you give up? And obviously the Justin Simmons news. You know, the Eagles are still they want another safety in the room right now. You know, they want safety help. You know, where can they go for that? You know, are they willing to trade for a safety? Or, I mean, I don't know who's left in free agency, but I guess we'll find out. And let me know what you guys think about, obviously, the Brian Johnson, Nick stuff, and the Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni's disconnect and all that stuff. I mean, I'm not surprised over it. I'm not surprised over any of it. So that's where we're at as of right now. But other than that, guys, that's pretty much it. If you guys haven't checked out the Philly Shakedown podcast merch, definitely check it out. We have a lot of clothing for the summer. We have men and women's sleeveless T-shirts. I know a lot of people were asking for those. And we have a big announcement coming next week, on the 21st, a big announcement of new merch coming out, and it's a lot. So I'm really excited to unveil that to you guys. Been working really hard on it. Link in the description for all the merch, and definitely enjoy. Link in the description. So other than that, guys, that's pretty much it. Subscribe, like the video. Appreciate it so much, and I will talk to you guys on the next one. Shakes, what up? Follow, so I peace out, guys. Bye.